priming you right now. So what was this? What's the secrets
What
that
was
you
the
shouldn't?
secret story, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely
no,
not.
man, I'm not gonna say it.
Not spilling any of this shit.
But like Mac should definitely open like a business. Mac's home Wi-Fi setup.
Mac has a business. No, I dude, if he would do that, like I need him to like come rewire fucking like 3 floors worth of
With AI.
Wi-Fi. With AI.
We need to be mindful of saying AI as often as possible.
Dude, I need to talk to you about like my new Linux setup with this AI shit. It's wild. It's
But
so
does it have
fucking
AI?
cool. Oh, it's entirely AI based. It is AI first.
Let me introduce the show quickly. This is the 3 Daddy Problem, episode 77, sponsored by our friends at ThreatLocker. These guys are all AI because our Riverside podcast recording software just gave us the 2025 recap of the most used word on this podcast for the year, and it was just literally all of us saying AI for like 5 minutes straight.
How can it not be a curse word? There's no way.
Because they're censoring it.
I think
for the
you're
amount
not
of
cursing
complaining.
enough.
Wow.
Maybe we're not cursing enough.
Maybe we're not. Maybe we're disappointing our fans right now.
What's to talk about this week, guys? I'm a little wholly unprepared. I know we have a ton of stuff to get to. I'm wholly unprepared, but I just want React to Shell. Obviously,
can we just have like
story.
a chill fucking discussion for a change?
Yeah, we will.
Like this
Let's
is
just chill and kind of update the folks on what's going on.
getting quizzed here. Yeah, I'm getting quizzed.
React to Shell, Costin, anything new? I mean, the one bit of documentation I saw this week was word from Microsoft Threat Intel folks talking about exposure. And the big line there was that the scale of enterprise exposure is a lot bigger and a lot wider than even what the scanners are showing. We talked about census data and some other data, gray noise data in the past about what they're seeing. Microsoft says they have unique telemetry that shows tens of thousands of distinct devices across several thousand organizations running this vulnerable React-based applications. And their warning is that the real-world enterprise footprint is significantly larger than this initial scanning suggests. Any update from your side, Costin, TLP Black side, on exposure, footprint of exposure?
First of all, good evening or good afternoon.
Ooh.
We've dispensed with all fucking formalities. Hey, Costin,
we skip the part where we ask, how is
the
Bucharest?
weather out there?
Correct.
You doing okay, man? What's going on? I think Ryan's just stressed,
I told you I'm
bro.
unprepared.
Dude, I'm worried now.
Microsoft. To be honest, when I read this blog, I thought the opposite. When Microsoft said like tens of thousands, I was like, wait, what? I was under the impression it's millions.
Oh,
So I don't know why is it just tens of thousands of distinct devices. My feeling was that it's a lot bigger than just tens of thousands. So maybe they refer specifically to Microsoft customers using one of their enterprise products. So not necessarily the consumer defender, or maybe they speak in regards to vulnerable applications, so stuff which is still vulnerable. So maybe the millions already patched, and what is left is just tens of thousands, which can also be a possibility. But my feeling was that, whoa, this is like too little for a company of Microsoft's size to say only tens of thousands. It's too small.
You think we can get down to patching from millions to tens of thousands over the last week? I mean, we talked about the difficulty of patching this thing and, newer vulnerabilities popping up. There's Vercel doing WAF bypass bounties. There's a lot of researcher energy there. And whenever there's blood in the water, more pops up and so on. Do you what is the visibility or reality around patching?
I could say that perhaps one of the good news here is that a lot of people were running on these hosted platforms like Netlify, Vercel, like you say, and those guys patched for you or made it not vulnerable, or simply they just don't run Microsoft products at Vercel or Netlify. So that means that they don't have direct visibility into those particular instances.
That's interesting. I mean, you have to consider, right? How much of this shit is running on Linux servers, as we discussed before, and why would Microsoft see them, right? Like if it's internet scanning and whatnot, that's one thing. If you're running, I guess, Linux in an Azure deployment, that might make sense, right? But Is their visibility just that limited into it?
I saw a note
It's
that
a good
Vercel is
question.
also force patching, setting up the structure in a way where they're forcing you to patch. You have to
Mm.
patch. You have to rotate your
Mm.
key before you can kind of redeploy and get anything done. So that's at least encouraging from their side.
I think that's good.
What
Like,
I thought, this Microsoft blog was still interesting for me because they were talking about different groups. Although they say that most of the attacks were deploying some kind of crypto miner, they also talk about other things like ShadowPad, if I remember correctly, and other custom malware. So I thought that was interesting that there's more evidence of APT groups using this vulnerability to deploy implants and going against potentially interesting targets. You were asking what's new on our side. We've worked TLP Black, that is, with a few customers who got customers. So we did a bunch of incident response
And turn
engagements
them into customers for
to
services.
turn them into customers. The reality is that this ecosystem is really tricky, and even if you want to protect people, it's not a straightforward problem. Like both from the point of view of some kind of automated patching, but also from the point of view of running some kind of an agent on their or in their environment, in their container, whatever, is not pretty straightforward to do because of how everything is designed to run. The good news, on the other hand, is that a lot of people, they run their applications inside the Docker, and with a bit of luck, they run the Docker in a container, and that on another virtualization service. And with enough secrets, separation, and if do segmentation, network segmentation, I think that that keeps you a bit safe, more safer than, let's say, other direct compromise cases.
Are we talking about React to Shell on our next week's episode, or is this going to eventually fade, or is this going to have this kind of Log4Shell long tail that drags into next year, where people keep getting popped, and we're starting to see things?
What's the scope of React to Shell, right? Like, do we, as a concept, because like we keep seeing new vulnerabilities popping up, right, and different types of findings, and we're just sort of lumping a lot of this together into like a single sort of React nightmare.
Right.
But I look, the interesting scenario here is not that like React is shown to be some kind of Swiss cheese, but instead, can it be that we see React getting pummeled and all these O days and all these vulnerabilities in high density for a little bit, and then suddenly we start to see that like the quality of the React to Shell of the React code base and gets so much better that now you start to see sparser and sparser vulnerabilities, right? Like that in theory, that's the goal or the dream state of bug bounties and just having all this attention placed on this thing, right? Like I don't fault them for there being a lot of bugs right now, but if in 6 months you're still like you can't kick a cat, you can't swing a cat around here without hitting a fucking vuln, you go, okay, it's been 6 months, everybody's been paying attention to it, what the fuck, right? Like I think it's a matter of density, right?
Did you say swinging cats?
Yeah.
Oh, Costin, is it easy to do post-incident forensics in this? Are there a lot of traces left behind? I ask because are we expecting a lot of silent APT activity unseen that will drag us into all of next year? Or is it easy to pinpoint signs of an infection?
Well, all the cases we have seen were Linux instances to which we were lucky enough to get a full disk image. So that helps because you can go for all sorts of forensics traces. I guess it's a bit more tricky if your application is hosted somewhere and you don't have like a lot of logging, but in general, It is not quite different from your average Linux incident response. Now, maybe I would say also that we were lucky that we've seen only crypto miners slash cyber criminal activity and nothing super APT highly advanced thing. So, I mean, people were dropping binaries in slash TMP, leaving them in slash TMP for I mean, a day or two, even after they no longer use them. So that makes it a lot easier to do incident response. But I would assume that in some cases, when you see APT level activity, maybe they don't even drop anything to disk. Everything is encrypted in memory. They just set up some tunnels and then they run all their activity through a web shell, which will make it a lot more tricky to investigate.
Am I going to read a Sentinel Labs threat report in 6 months that says these guys hit reactor shell 6 months ago and we're sitting there, nobody was able to see it? That's the kind of question. I mean, is there going to be some silent APT activity there, Juanito?
Absolutely. But look, this is one of those bugs that goes into the opportunistic arsenal. Why not? Right? But it's the same way as like, keeping Eternal Blue in your opportunistic arsenal. If I run into a target that has it, why not? Right? Like that is just victim of opportunity. And if somebody's kind enough to be hosting some infrastructure for us, for the attackers, then why should they not? Right?
On this React thing, I wanted to mention our friend Andrew McPherson got a big shout out from Sam Altman. He's described as a security researcher using GPT 5.1 Codex Max with Codex CLI, found and responsibly disclosed a vulnerability in React that could lead to source code exposure. Andrew's referenced in the blog here, and they talk about how he went about doing this. So shout out to our friend Andrew, getting bugs killed and bugs fixed. Anything you want to add to that, Juanito?
Dude, he got noticed by Sama Senpai. No, it's amazing
to
see
now.
our own boy Andrew McPherson in the actual 5.2 Codex blog, which I think it's fucking awesome. And honestly, for folks who don't know Andrew, he's one of the nicest human beings on earth, which I don't think we're supposed to know by his appearance. But also, the thing we all know from the conference circuit is he's a fucking beast when it comes to all these like CTFs and like. The guy's got some skills that I don't think he readily communicates.
Andrew is all Maltego. Andrew is one of the original Maltego developers. He used to go around the world giving Maltego training. Yeah. So with Paterva, with those guys.
But this is fucking cool, right? Like the idea being that, look, I think there's a couple of different approaches right now when it comes to all this like like models applying to cybersecurity and what they're gonna do. And one of them is this like alarmist thing with Anthropic, and we saw with the report and then the congressional testimony, and oh my god, these things are going to do whatever. And really, what at that point what you're talking about is largely like campaign orchestration, which means we're still in the automation phase. Like that's not there's a reason I think none of us really lost our minds when we read the Anthropic espionage report. I already forgot what they called their threat actors, whatever 0002 or, but we didn't lose our minds because it's like, well, somebody's automating something at speed. That is the same shit we always see in any campaign. But what you talk about with things like this, like OpenAI putting out this post basically saying, look, this is the evolution of our Codex, like essentially coding agent, and it's showing greater capabilities in just unearthing things that are there and require human intellect, like specialized domain expert human intellect from the same code that we all have access to. Right. I think that's a lot more interesting. I think that's an actual testament to, is there like an evolving reasoning capability in these models rather than are we building new types of tools that will let us do the same shit we used to do faster. So I find this really interesting. I haven't used any of like the Codex Max thing, which is kind of I'm disappointed in myself, but this is like a really good forcing function, I think, to say, okay, clearly they've hit some kind of landmark in what the models can do. Clearly, Dave Itel's work and whatever Aardvark is sort of doing in the background is being codified into these codex models. So I think this is precisely the one that I would want to start, retesting my like reversing harness with and go, okay, how is this performing compared to the other ones?
Did I see someone ship a reversing AI thingy this week, Costin?
Ivan.
Who's our old colleague? Yes, Ivan.
Yeah,
what was
sure.
that thing? Remind me.
Shout outs to our good friend Ivan Kwiatkowski, who is a developer of Geppetto. Geppetto being
Geppetto.
possibly the most popular IDA Pro plugin. I mean, it's been the most popular for quite a long time, because it allows you to integrate AI into reverse engineering. So with shortcuts and like right click, you can go through functions produced by Hexrays, obviously, and comment the code, rename the functions, and so on. So Ivan put together like an automated reversing service that leverages AI to take a binary, like a full binary, as opposed to a function, and just go through it, disassemble it, decompile it, and then analyze it with Gemini, I think, is the default model. I played a bit with it, and it's very interesting. It's quite promising. Ivan was kind enough to actually say it on X. Do reach out to Ivan. I mean, if you're a researcher,
let me ping him.
Feel free to reach out to him and ask for an access for evaluation. This speeds up things a lot. Why? Because like previously, I was going through different binaries with Geppetto, and it takes about 30 seconds for me with the local model or even with the cloud model to analyze a function, comment it, or rename it. So that's 30 seconds per function. If you have 1,000 functions in the binary, then it will take some time. And the cloud-based Geppetto, it decompile the binary for me in less than a minute, the entire binary, and then you can grab the IDB from his website to work on it more locally.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Speaking of tools, your colleague at TLP Black, Dan Demeter, announced Open Clara, which is a fork of the old Kaspersky Claro. Mm-hmm. Can you just give the audience a little bit of background? What is Clara? Mm-hmm. Why this fork?
Yeah, I mean, back in the days, we wanted to have something similar to VirusTotal Retro Hunt that we can run on our own premise. And Dan developed Clara, an open source project. So we were also able to get all the approvals from the top to open source it. We put it
was originally open source, that way back.
Yeah,
right?
Well, originally we were using it internally in the team, and then I was maybe sneaky enough to put one of our MBO points, one of our objectives, to open source projects. So then I said, like, let's open source Clara, do more for the community. And my goal was, just when you say that we're here to save the world, or like we want to make the internet safer, you need to mean it, not just to say it. So I thought it's important to open source as many of our projects as possible, which is why we open sourced Clara, TinyCheck, and a few others. And unfortunately, it's been abandoned for some time. I don't think Kaspersky was maintaining it after Dan left. So that's almost 1 year now, or over 1 year. And other people were still interested to contribute. So Dan, together with the other contributors, they forked it, turned it into Open Clara. So now it's being updated, it's being maintained. And it's one of these nice things to have, like your own little local retro hunt capability, which you can deploy at home. You can deploy it in the office. You can even deploy it in the cloud if you want.
GitHub.com/xdanx/open-KLARA to go find it. I'll put a link in the description there. Shout out to Dan.
I didn't want to interrupt Costin while he was talking. Halfway through your first sentence, Ivan had already sent me the username and password for this Geppetto thing. It's Saturday at 10 o'clock in the fucking morning. Well, he's over in Europe, but this is phenomenal. So I'm about to test it. This is great.
Awesome.
So
Any other?
by the time we finish the next story, Juan will also have
I have
his own report by
That's right.
using Geppetto
All right.
Cloud.
Let me focus, guys. Let me
All
figure
right.
this shit out.
I want to shift gears a little bit. We've seen this next story. We've kind of felt the momentum of this coming, starting with RSA, with Alexei Bulasel's RSA comments about destigmatizing offensive operations and making sure we're, there are consequences for attacks. And his argument was like doing nothing also is a choice you make that could also be escalatory and so on. So we've discussed this a lot in the past. Just recently, we had Dr. Sergey Bratus and Winona's paper on From Chaos to Capability, Building the U.S. Market for Offensive Cyber, as calling for a framework and some structure around things. And it's now built up to Jamie Tarabay's reporting in Bloomberg that there's now an actual document circulating where the U.S. government is preparing to turn private businesses to help mount offensive cyber operations against foreign adversaries. So we've kind of seen this coming, this privatization of offensive cyber operations. We kind of, I don't know, I felt like it felt inevitable. And then we had Senator Mike Lee tweeting about letters of marque, giving private folks and the freedom to seize cartel assets as a privateer and so on. So there's like a lot of noise and energy around offensive security hacking from a private sector perspective. Wanting to round this up into like a summary of where we're at.
I don't know where we're at. We keep seeing smoke signals, and I think it's really interesting that the same story effectively keeps popping up over and over, because it's almost like the periodicity of it is changing, and I guess we're expected to reach some kind of critical mass. Like, I take it almost as like preparing the ground, right? Like you're kind of testing
coordinated.
I wouldn't even say coordinated, because it's not like we're seeing like 30 different news outlets coming out. Like, it's not the kind of prep that I would expect for, like, let's say, oh, we're attacking another country and we just want everybody to be comfortable with that idea. It's more along the lines of like, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. And that's interesting in itself, because if you ask me, this is not meant discussing this is not really meant to change how the public thinks. It's not really meant to signal anything to security researchers. I think it's meant to signal things to companies and investors. The idea being that if what we're saying is we are going to change precedent and or the law and or policies to allow companies to now offer a service that before was considered too spicy, illegal, or problematic to offer, then what we're hoping for are companies that are interested in doing so, investors who are interested in doing so, if and when the opportunity arises. Because the last thing you want is for these folks to put all of this energy and effort into changing U.S. policy, only to then have a bunch of investors and companies be like, yeah, fuck that. Like, we have no interest in doing that. And you go, well, we just burned God knows how long, how many cycles, and how many bullets do you really have in that gun that you can sort of move the machinery of the U.S. government.
Isn't there an egg coming before the chicken there, though, where this is in response to private sector wanting to get into this business, but not having a legal framework, a policy structure around it? Maybe it's the opposite.
It's both. No, I think it's both. I think it's definitely both, right? Like you don't just change a policy like that for nobody, but you also don't want to. It's not just done in the service of like a given interest. Like, this is effectively the creation or the extension of an entire market's worth of investment, right? As a response to this, what you're hoping to see is the primes, the big defense contractors suddenly becoming very interested in pouring billions into certain capabilities, and at the same time, the VCs funding a bunch of startups with the goal of feeding those primes. Because when you talk about defense contractors, right, like what they have is existing contracts and all the lawyers and all the lobbyists and all the contacts to make government business work. And that shit is hard. It takes time, it takes paperwork, it takes existing relationships, it takes, cleared buildings, it takes knowing how to fit requirements. Like there's just so much bureaucratic bullshit, which is why it's like practically impossible for us to put together a company and go get government contracts. But at the same time, they suck at recruiting hackers, recruiting reversers, keeping people that are actually going to have, the innovation and the interest in doing the job.
Or could smoke weed, right?
And that can, get super high and hack good. So what do you get? VCs will invest, especially what I like to call the DC VC people, like the folks in the DMV.
In-Q-Tels, yeah.
And not In-Q. In-Q-Tel is still too close to government. Like In-Q-Tel in itself is like kind of a bit of a failed experiment, if you ask me. Like not to put them out like that, but like it was meant to facilitate and create this agility for government to be able to invest into the things it wants, and then it became a bureaucracy and this half-assed like sort of VC experiment, but it doesn't really do the kind of VC you want. What you want here is the deep pocket DMV area national security investors to come out and say, hey kids, like all these like 5 people who left the IC over here, 5 people who left Cyber Command over there, 5 people who left CIA over there, and they're really interested in actually making a living and doing cool shit with the skills that they've got. And this, DCVC shows up and goes, I got you, here's $20 million, just go over there and like do your thing, and just do what you think is cool, we'll get you bought up by fucking Raytheon within 2 years. And that's the real goal. They're not going to say it. You never talk about sort of what your actual exit strategy and goal is. That's just bad business. But at the end of the day, that's the real hope for a lot of these folks is you build up a company, 30, 40, 50 people, maybe 100 people if you really want to kind of muscle your way out. You get some government contracts, or at least the attention, meaning that you would get them. You get yourself in a relationship with a prime. Eventually, a company like Raytheon goes, fuck this. We want to own the entire, offensive red teaming space. We're going to go spend $10 billion buying every fucking company that has gotten any contracts or attention from the U.S. government so that we own all of the U.S. government's contracting in cyber. And that's exactly what happened with the offensive side already. But now you have a whole new sector of it to do.
You think that's coming? A whole VC ecosystem just serving as a feeder to the primes, basically just creating companies and technologies to.
Oh, bro! Sell. I mean, that's not coming. That's what exists already. This is a new area that I think the hope is that existing mechanism will take heed, has taken heed, will continue to take heed, and will respond to the government's need. And that's usually how these things are presented, right? Like the government says we want X, and then the free market is supposed to show up and say, well, wouldn't you know it, we've been building X this whole fucking time. And then everybody just kind of falls into place. Look, it's a market, it's incentives, it's whatever. I think the bigger question we tend to hyper focus on as practitioners is like the policy and the implications and what's going to happen and how are you going to supervise this, that, and the other. The reality of it is most things, there's nothing new under the sun. And what I've always told my friends when talking about all this, when hackers try to get into bureaucratic shit like government business, look, man, you can only change one thing at a time. You can change what the business is, but you can't change how they do business. Or you can try to change how they do business, but it better not be for something that they haven't done before, right? Like pick one fucking lane that you're trying to rage against and try your hardest. But you're not going to show up and tell these people how to do business a different way in a totally new business area with totally new business players and totally new business terms. Like, you can't shift all of the pillars at once. You pick one thing. So if the thing now is we are going to do ops that nobody used to be able to do, cool. You're not going to change the business structure. You're going to fit into the existing business structure. The only way you get to do differently is something like Anduril, and that was like, the reason Anduril is so special is you chose to do things very differently with an entirely different business mechanism, an entirely different way of contracting and whatnot, with the auspices of a bajillionaire who's sitting at the helm telling the existing business structures to go fuck themselves because he doesn't need the money. And if that's the circumstance, if that's what we've got in our hands, phenomenal. But I've yet to see the Palmer Luckey of cyber arise among us.
Oh, Kevin Mandia has a new funding for a new startup. Costin, in the midst of Juanito's monologue there, you were wryly smiling your European smile. You had this wry European smile on your face around these offensive actors. I got a couple of questions.
Tell me.
How would this be any different from NSO, Paragon, all these offensive private sector security companies that already exist? One. And two, are you like me fast forwarding through into the future where, hey, we can issue most wanted papers with people's faces on it, all the way down to these APT operators in China? We have this ability to do it. We're very, very skilled at forensics and finding, artifacts that bring it down to that person. What makes us think that the Chinese or the Russians won't be able to do this and have Americans' faces pops up as offensive actors getting picked up places? Like, what makes us think this is just the normalcy that I don't want to say we enjoy. I don't know. Am I making the point?
It's funny that and by the way, shout outs to our good friend Ben Reed, whom maybe one remembers we met in London earlier this year. He had a talk at the Virtual Routes Binding Hook Live event.
He's over at Wiz now.
He's at Wiz, correct. So shout outs to Ben. We were just talking, I think, last night about a very specific story in which the one of the police offices in China, they actually released the names of 3 suspected NSA operators, and they issued arrest warrants for them. And this was a story from earlier this year. And I was just thinking that, yeah, of course, what stops them from potentially identifying others and releasing more arrest warrants? And something that we have seen recently, even with Russian cyber criminals or government hackers being arrested in different places, like in Thailand, I was like in particular amused by one point in the story, which was this: would you like to seize cartel assets as a privateer? And I was like, in my mind, I was seeing people navigating in the Caribbean on these wooden boats with I don't know, lances or tridents or
and a letter of marque in their hand,
and the letter, and hunting all these like fentanyl boats, speedboats, speeding through the Caribbean, and then you catch, let's say you catch them, right, by some miracle or technique or with a slingshot or something. You catch them and then you seize their assets, which is what fentanyl. What do you do with it? Like, can you sell it? Is it something you can profit from? Can you sell it to the government? The government gives you some money and they burn it? Or how does it work? Or even better, can you somehow just imagine if they put AI into the motor boats? Like, if those boats had some kind of AI and internet connection, and then you hack into the boat. You hack into the boat, you take over the boat. You redirect boat back to your wooden boat, and then you seize the assets. Like, I was thinking, like, the possibilities are endless. The possibilities are just endless. Sadly, not something we can do in Europe. I mean, we are way, way behind with this, but I
As soon
think
as you figure out the bottle cap thing, this is the next
the
next
bottle.
frontier.
Like yeah, Europe has obviously other focuses at the moment. US has other things like Venezuela, obviously, and I wonder how important and assuming that the US goes into some kind of military conflict with Maduro and Venezuela, how feasible is for some of these, you know, privateers, private companies just hitting Venezuela's oil refineries, infrastructure, electricity, all that stuff, hitting it, and being part of the military operation. How feasible do you think that is? Or it's completely unthinkable that something like this would ever be on the table?
Let me read Senator Mike Lee's tweet, Juanito, before you answer. It says, would you like to seize cartel assets as a privateer?
Yes.
My bill would allow the president to issue you a letter of marque. Time to take these pirates down. Senator Mike Lee introduced the Cartel Mark and Reprisal Reauthorization Act. The bill authorizes Trump to commission American operators on the letters of marque to seize cartel property and persons on land or sea outside the United States.
That's what I mean. With the trident.
With a trident, yeah. I have
on a wooden boat.
On a wooden boat. I have so many thoughts. So it really, look, we are conflating a lot of things together here on purpose. Letters of marque were, well-established mechanism back in like the privateer days when piracy was a big, like literal in the oceans fucking privacy.
So like what's going on the Horn of Africa that's happening now?
Yeah. Like, somebody coming on your fucking boat, stealing your shit. So
you can shoot them.
And we love that. So it's an existing mechanism. And then you talk about like cartels, which is an existing hot button issue. And this is kind of like how politics gets played, right? Like you take something, you take a pet project of yours, and then you make it relevant to a hot button issue of right now, even if they don't really add up that way, with the hopes of creating the momentum for the policy change so that something can happen. What this is, I don't know how the fuck this applies to like cartels in particular. We could redefine ransomware groups as cartels, for example. Like there's, we can talk about sort of what we really mean by seizing of assets, right? Like the reason I'm talking about ransomware groups right off the bat is like that was the easy one. That was the obvious one, right? You hack I pop the C2s for some bullshit ransomware as a service group. I take their keys, I take their wallets. Now I'm sitting on 20, or $200 million worth of, some bullshit cryptocurrency thing nobody's ever heard of. And then I go, okay, what am I going to do with this thing, right? You hand it over to the FBI. The FBI goes, thanks. Here's, 10% for what you've recovered. And they go presumably give the money back to folks. That makes sense. When it comes to cartels, like I'm sure cartels are taking advantage of cryptocurrency in some fashion, but that's not what we're normally talking about. So then that becomes more of like, are we talking tipsters here? If I let you know that there's like, a ton of bricks of cocaine that are just about to get offloaded in Baltimore. Sorry, I'm on season 2 of The Wire. No spoilers, people.
No.
Look, leave me alone.
It's like 90s series. Right?
I've had a busy
the
life.
greatest television show ever made.
And
you just dropped that. Now you're looking at it.
I'm getting to it. I'm trying.
I haven't seen
okay.
it.
What? I've never seen.
I haven't seen him.
You see? I have read so much about the fucking Wire. You have no idea how many philosophers write about the Wire, which is why I always knew that I needed to watch it. But I was busy.
The greatest television
reversing
show ever
and
made.
Shit.
Not
That's
even
a weird
close.
Name.
Not
The
even
Wire?
close. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, so as I was trying to say, right? So if we give these motherfuckers like, yo, there's a bunch of bricks of coke getting offloaded in a port, and they go and seize it. Like, is it the same? Like, are we going to get some kind of asset forfeiture? Because, like, there's a lot that you could be doing with these sort of cyber mechanisms, but is it directly, immediately resulting in the seizing of funds and money? Sometimes, maybe, kind of, if you let me have like 2-3 hops worth of separation. But considering that, like, you won't pay me a rewards for justice even if I fucking give you like the name and ID of a known ransomware operator.
Is that I mean, you mentioned that on the podcast before, this rewards for justice claiming thing, that you call it a scam, I believe.
For anybody who's listening, if you have ever received a rewards for justice reward, please come forward and claim your prize. You know, we I don't know. We'll get you like a ticket for a cruise or some shit. I have yet to meet a single human being that has ever gotten their rewards for justice bounty. At the same time, I seem to know a whole lot of human beings who keep reporting this shit, have like handed back millions of dollars worth of funds. They've like identified individuals. They've disrupted operations. None of them they don't seem to have gotten a fucking dollar cut in half so that they could split it amongst themselves. So, yeah, I mean, maybe it's the greatest fucking secret we've ever been able to keep. We could not keep NSA tools inside of the NSA, but we can keep rewards for justice bounties secret. Something, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Don't we already have private sector offensive actors and offensive companies?
Yeah, of course. Look, what we're talking about here is, and I look, Ryan, I suspect that this conversation must sound ridiculous and idiotic to a lot of other countries, especially the Chinese, because it's like we put ourselves in this straitjacket, and then we're just like fighting, wrestling on the ground, trying to fucking get an arm out of the fucking straitjacket. And everybody else is just standing there watching us fucking wriggle on the ground for no reason. This is totally fucking normal in other places. Having like, to some extent.
But that's why we're not those places, though, right? That's what we've separated ourselves on, not being those places.
I understand that. But before, running to like fucking break our arms off, patting ourselves on the back for being Boy Scouts. Let's everybody sort of chill the fuck out. Sorry, I haven't slept a whole lot, so that's why I'm talking over everybody and whatever.
It's fine. I want you to talk some more because I want you to like.
You want me to talk shit? Is what you're?
No. Paint a perfect scenario situation for me where this draft strategy gets put in place as we're reading it, and the momentum that we talked about being building. What is a perfect world scenario for something that works or is acceptable?
So you're hamstringing me here because you're putting the draft strategy and the perfect scenario together, and those are separate things. I don't want to talk about it that way because I have no fucking clue what's in that draft strategy.
Right, we're just going by a couple of lines on Bloomberg.
No, but I'm saying I have no clue what's in the draft strategy, and I have no clue how that's gonna percolate. And there is no way that draft strategy goes can change enough of this system to make it anywhere near what I would want to discuss. So let's get away from the current initiatives or what's possibly on the table, and let's talk about, if we want to talk about some kind of more ideal, more clear scenario of what could be. And really, the discussion here, this is going to be unpopular, and it always gets some kind of pushback. But to me, talking about cyber in the US is like hanging out with those fucking kids that like doing Model UN. It's like the kind of people in high school you just wanted to like fucking beat the shit out of and like shove them into a fucking, locker.
I got a bunch of those friends.
Fucking dweebs. And that's because, you give them even the idea of rules turns them on so much, right? Like just they're dying to conform to rules that have not even been written yet. We can talk about sort of the complex childhood traumas that make overachievers the internalization of the critical parent as superego that makes you so fucking neurotic that you're dying for rules to follow, even if they make no sense.
I knew I'd get a rant out of this.
I haven't slept. So, look, last time you guys told me I was too muted, so I haven't slept for shit. My life's falling apart.
I want to get to what's the goal.
Look, it's not a goal. There is no goal.
There has to be an end goal. I mean, we've seen...
No. We're not even in the fucking race. Like, there is a marathon being run in some fucking Olympic stadium over there. I don't know how marathons work. I haven't ran a day in my fucking life. Last time I ran a mile, I was in high school, and it was forced on me. I have no fucking clue. Anyway,
how many laps do you think a marathon is in an Olympic stadium?
I have no idea. I don't want to know. I do not want to know. I will walk a 5-block radius. That's the max.
1,000 laps.
1,000 laps.
Motherfuckers, my point here is there's a race being run wherever it is that races are run. And we're not at the starting line. We're not halfway running in the race.
We're in the hotel getting dressed.
We're still in our parents' car, sort of going around trying to figure, like getting dropped off somewhere to participate. And that's because, frankly, there's no such thing as creating a rules-based, incentive structure-based mechanism and not affecting the space that you are molding and impacting. The fucking CFAA from the fucking 90s onward has hamstrung what this country could do in cyber and cyber innovation with a ridiculous standard of what it means to commit a crime online. And like, I don't even know how we have hackers. I don't even know how we have hackers in this country. It is a fucking testament to the true obstinacy of neurodivergent people that we still have hackers. The fact that we have stories of mega corporations suing people that just wanted to go to Vegas and get on stage and say, look at the nifty fucking thing I figured out. And they were doing it in a presumably kind way. Is amazing, considering that you're threatening literally everybody with legal action that will either bankrupt you or land you in jail for doing some of the dumbest shit possible, still at the lowest level of capability. Fuck, if Anthropic, if Opus 4.5 was a person, that motherfucker would be in jail, right? Like, after that report from the last time. And the point, sorry, this is a very long-winded way of saying, there is no ideal. The ideal is just for us to realize that we're not in some bullshit norms-based, policy-based environment. There is no digital Geneva Convention. Nobody here is playing by the rules. It's the wild fucking West out there, and everybody out there is armed to the fucking teeth, playing like guerrilla shit and fucking taking down boats and stealing other people's crap and just fucking each other over left and right. And we're sitting here waiting for our parents to pick us up, hoping everybody will just kind of learn the rules one of these days, right? It's just like, it's the fucking most ridiculous shit ever. So we're not talking about having some ideal mechanism. What we're talking about is just making it to the race, making it to play in the same way and with the same breadth of options that everybody else plays with. At the same time, I agree with you, Ryan. I'm not saying that I want the US to become like China or Russia. I don't want us to suddenly go fucking commit what are possibly ostensibly war crimes online by like turning off the power and letting people freeze to death and shit like that. Like, I'm not saying that we should allow ourselves to do whatever. I'm just saying that what we have done is instead treat cyber operations like they're fucking nuclear missiles. And it goes through 17,000 layers of bureaucracy so that the answer is almost certainly no, because that's how you want nuclear missiles to work. You would like to never, ever, 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 ever find out if that shit even works. I don't want to fucking know. Nobody wants to fucking know. You design the entire system towards never finding out. And that's just not how cyber works at all. And everybody else can see that, which is why the Chinese are on every fucking box on Earth. And never, never have they accidentally killed an orphan in a respirator on a fucking, you know, this, I don't know, whatever the fuck machine plugged into a Windows XP box that just magically got hit with a little bit of plug X and killed somebody, right? Like, but we are living by those rules. So our shit just doesn't make sense. The scale of our operations does not really compare. The breadth of things that we bring in doesn't compare. We don't have the mechanisms, like to Winona and Sergey Bradis' point, we don't have the mechanisms for people to even be playing in the space, providing things to government the way that we needed to, paying those people for the things that we need to be doing. Like, we're talking about rewards for justice. One of the few things I can think of where somebody literally has put like a dollar sign and said, we will pay you for this cyber adjacent shit. We would talk about it as a scam. Do you think the Chinese have that problem? You think the Chinese are out there going like, you know, we can go hack that place and steal that thing these people want, but I don't know if they'll pay us. I don't know if they have the right bureaucratic mechanisms to pay us. Like, that is not a question. So my point isn't we need to become like China or we need to lose our standards, but like, we're playing Model UN for some fucking reason, and everybody out there is like in a guerrilla war, and I just don't see how we survive that.
And
By the way, shout outs to Jamie Tarabay, who was our good friend at Bloomberg for this story, which I think is quite interesting. And there's a lot of interesting discussion around this topic. And I was thinking maybe to share maybe a slightly different point of view here. And it reminded me of a conference I attended around 2013, 14, I think it was in Sweden, where I think I presented about Stuxnet, things like that, and cyber weapons, and everyone was like, yeah, that's bad, cyber weapons are bad. And then a general, you know, he comes up and then he says, yeah, cyber weapons, das is very good. Yes, everybody wants to have cyber weapons. We want to have cyber weapons as well. And like the other people in the audience were like, what? And I was wondering if what's going on here is that someone's been looking east and they see things like the Ukrainian cyber army, like the cyber army of Ukraine, which has 500,000 members. They see things like No Name 05716, like all these hacktivists, all these hacktivist groups, hacktivist if you want, like, and the idea, how come that we don't have the cyber army of the United States of America? Or the cyber army of Texas, of the cyber army of rednecks, or I don't know, something like that. Or the National Guard Cyber Army Division Corps, something like that. And it's a missed opportunity, man. I think that someone is looking east with envy and thinking, why don't we have that? Why don't we have, it seems that we are like maybe falling behind. My opinion is, these companies, like you were saying, NSO, whatever, those are like the big players. They're in for the big money. These letters of marque, they'll be for people who'll be making like maybe $10,000, $20,000, maybe in this range, but they won't get the millions. So maybe, you know, the scope is different and the goal is the cyber army of Texas.
My man, I don't think this government is even interested or aware of $50,000 deals. And that's part of what I like to remind all the hackers, because like the conversation about letters of marque has been going on for a long time. As a sort of, you know, creative stricture we always discussed about like, yeah, you're making this thing I need to do illegal, but what if you made it not illegal for me? Right?
Yeah,
like,
but that's what you've been asking for on the podcast, like for the entirety of this podcast. You and I have had this pushback over and over. I call you Mr. America over it. It's
I don't
just
know
like
that I've been
unleash the
asking
shackles.
for it. I don't know that I've been asking for it. All I'm saying is the thing we have right now and that we've created for ourselves doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense to my friends. It doesn't make any sense for what you want. So I am not invested in protecting the thing that doesn't make sense to me. Is there a good reason for doing things in this way? There are reasons, and some of them are good. I do not think that that justifies this bizarre, neurotic system that we're in when it comes to classification, when it comes to, like, dude, we don't understand how bad this shit is because you would think that it's just too silly. There's no way rational human beings would expose themselves to these things. But like, you have to understand when you talk about classified stuff, which a platform, a piece of a malware, or the things that Costin and I have like played with happily, fucking, equation group samples that just fall out of the sky and we go and we fucking tear them apart. That is a piece of alchemy that we're handling because it used to be classified ultra rare material that created this thing, this weapon. And somewhere, somehow, someone had to figure out a way to get, someone in there to bless and transmute this thing from something classified to something that would be out in the world. And that alone is a form of dark magic, because the notion itself is so ridiculous and insane that we have no other way that like we would even know how to get this thing out of the fucking building, even though that is its purpose. And just for people to have an analog, right? If we created a new kind of missile that is just so above and beyond any capability anybody else even knows is possible, like let's say it's some hypersonic missile that fucking would just shoot off into space and disappear, and then suddenly boom, the Kremlin vanishes, and it happened in 30 seconds. We didn't even think that was possible. Other countries don't even think it's possible. Then you start to have the conversation of, well, if we shot the missile anywhere, then people would know it's possible. So we would break the secrecy that this thing exists, and therefore other countries would now know it exists and they would want to have it. So we should never, ever use this missile. That's the equivalent conversation we have, but for fucking Cobalt Strike. For like a fucking pen testing suite that somebody happened to write in Maryland instead of writing it in Shenzhen. That's my point. That's why I'm so exasperated. It's not that I want everybody fucking shooting cyber bullets all over the place. It's just that the shit we're doing makes no fucking sense. And I would like a shot at making it just make a little bit more sense.
Which I think is the purpose of the Bratas Venono paper was right. None of this makes any sense. There is no structure to it. Like, start putting some formalities around it so we can have some clarity. Right. Anything to add to this, Costin? You expect people to start getting arrested and picked up in somewhere in the world for traveling? I mean, like, that's the logical next step. That my warning would be to security researchers, like, listen, one day you like to travel somewhere. Be careful.
Look, I think with this administration, like you were saying a few episodes back, the discussion is more about deregulating things instead of regulating things. So I see it more likely to do things like, here's your letter, do whatever you want. You guys want to do the cyber army of taxes, just go ahead. Like, knock yourself out. I see it like more into disorganized chaos style attacks on our adversaries and enemies rather than giving these letters to the big companies. So more like just democratize cyber hacktivist style operations against Venezuela, against China, Iran, North Korea, whatever, whoever is connected to the internet these days and have oil or something to donate. I don't know. So maybe more along these lines, in my opinion.
Just a very, very quick fact check on on how many laps it takes to run a marathon in an Olympic stadium.
Oh, now you motherfuckers fact check? Really? Fuck you
It is
guys.
105 laps, not 1,000. So it's 105 laps around a 400-meter track to get to a marathon.
My multiplication skills failed by a zero.
I would rather fucking die.
Speaking of timing,
I ran 5 laps. In college, I ran 5 laps and almost died. So
was that 2,000 meters? That's not.
But that's like 5 laps more than Juan.
Speaking of time and time centers, and along the same lines,
God.
do you remember that story we discussed? What? I think it was, what was it? I checked it today. Episode 69 of the 3-Body Problem. We discussed this Chinese APT report pinpointing and blaming the NSA for infiltration of China's National Time Service Center.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed, like, well, is it a good report? What's the Chinese up to? What's happening here, there, and everywhere? Washington Times has a report out today that suggests that this is part of like strategic sabotage capabilities, planting yourselves in places where you can potentially disrupt, you can do some ground-based things around satellites and around missile launch systems. Like you get embedded in there and you can, make a missile turn around and land in the wrong place, that kind of thing. I don't know how to make I don't know what the Washington Times sources are, how high quality this is, but does this seem to make sense? That organization becomes infected for this reason.
So this is the story when they were speaking about connections between a Croatian group running this new DSZ implant and it being connected to triangulation. If you remember it, they were saying that we had a new DSZ in the network, and some of the sysadmins, their phones were owned by triangulation, and that's why we think that the two things are connected. I was indeed thinking, why would someone target this National Time Service Center? This didn't come to me like an idea. I was thinking more along the lines that maybe these guys, they have VPNs around China, I don't know, highly encrypted, maybe quantum resistant connections all over China, and perhaps compromising this entity allows you to do some nice supply chain attacks into other less protected organizations. So that was like my primary thought when I read the story. I didn't think that they would do some pre-positioning similar to what we discussed about Volt Typhoon back in the days, right? So I didn't think that this would be the case, because if you ask me, the chances of these operations getting discovered are pretty high. So hoping to be undetected for years, because you don't know when China will decide to launch a strike anywhere. You need to hide this capability, somehow keep it under the radar for many, many years. So hoping that your new DSZ implant that is actually based perhaps on the old DSZ implant that everyone has since the shadow brokers, I think that's hoping for a little bit too much. So the idea that they would just reposition these tools there and hoping for them never to be discovered in the next 15 whatever years, I think it's unlikely. But again, first I thought this is a Washington Post, and then I thought, no, this is the Washington Times. What's that? Is it like, honestly, I don't know, like you were saying. So I think there might be other reasons why someone would be deploying some tools against the people working at the National Time Service Center, but who knows? Perhaps other listeners, they also have ideas on what other possibilities are here.
Before you go, Juanito, there was scuttlebutt that whenever the North Koreans did a test and this thing blew up in the sky and all these failed tests, that they were related to potential sabotage and the kinds of things that, like Stuxnet, for instance, was a classic case of like long-term embedded sabotage. The idea here is that it's the strategic missile defense called left of launch, which is you're in there before they even launch, and you can come on there and do whatever you want to do. Your response?
Well, this is the kind of thing I had in mind when I was talking earlier. Look, I think in some ways we're getting to talk about something really interesting in a ass backwards way that I'm not sure is substantiated. right? Like, I think the Time Institute hack was very interesting, and I wish we knew more about what that hack was for. But for anybody who was, seen what the big, mighty, true power of USG is like when they set their minds to something, you look at something like that and you go, oh, well, like a normal person goes, oh, why the fuck would they care about like the Time Institute? And you go, I'm sure the possibilities are literally fucking endless for what they can do as far as like disrupting crypto and like, timing attacks for, the financial backends and like all kinds of shit that rely on accurate timing. It's without the shadow of a doubt that this enables all kinds of cool shit. Stop, break, different topic. There's this thing about, what do you do with sabotaging missile capabilities? And I think it's really fascinating, right? Like, it's what I was talking about earlier. When it comes to nukes and missiles, you really, this is like one of the most important areas of what intelligence can do to contribute to national defense. It's one of the most contentious things in history that we've been dealing with. I mean, think about the Cold War, think about the Cuban Missile Crisis, think about, how important the AQCON network and proliferation of like nuclear bombs, then proliferation of, ICBMs became, right? Like, this is one of the hottest fucking most important topics in national security. Of course, there is all kinds of work that is going into how do you sabotage navigation systems? How do you sabotage missile routing systems? How do you handle, are they using GPS? Are they using laser guidance? Are they using this, that, and the other? Like, there's so many ways. Do you affect these systems every time? Or are you smarter and you only affect the systems in a slight deviation when they're maybe being shot in a direction that you don't want them to be shot? Like, how do you stay as resident for as long as possible without getting caught so that you can be there when it matters, right? You don't want them to notice during a test. You want them to notice. You want them to never fucking notice and then be really confident and try to shoot a missile at a nation and suddenly have it fucking veer off and blow up into a bunch of confetti over the ocean, right? Like that. It's a really, really, really interesting part of this work. I don't know that it applies in this particular hack. And so I was reading the story and I'm like, fascinating, possible, one of the many, 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 many things possible here. Why the fuck are we talking about this? Why are people commenting on this? The kind of people who work on this would much rather this topic never be fucking mentioned anywhere, hypothetically, realistically, theoretically, or otherwise.
I'm glad you brought up that point because the why of this article stands out to me. Like, why does a few internal, officials, government officials say are speculating on what they believe this is likely aimed at? There's there's always a reason for this stuff. No idea.
I don't know, man. I like, that's the thing. I don't understand some of the whether this is another area where you have to wonder when we talk about governments signaling, we tend to think of governments as if they're like unitary entities and operating in unison. I think that anyone who really works on this kind of thing inside of a real government does not want to talk about it. So anybody who's commenting on this shit, I'm looking at them sideways going, I'm assuming you're just looking out for yourself here, bro. I don't know that you know necessarily what you're talking about. Like, this is one of those.
I think it points to the importance of what is China's National Time Center Service. Its time service center is, and how legitimate a target it is. And the security people, the people who are responsible for its security, should always be assuming that there are 5 APTs sitting on their box at one time, right? Shouldn't they? If this is what this organization is.
The hope is that they never ever think about it. Right? Let them the hope is that they just, they're like, well, we just keep the time. They're like a bunch of watch nerds, right? Like that, that's what you hope, but they never fucking think about it. Like, honestly, it's amazing how much of the ground shifted post Snowden simply because people started to talk about the importance of perfectly inane bullshit. Research departments at universities, people talking about cryptographic algorithms, and some sysadmin somewhere. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, those are not bullshit jobs in the slightest. Those are actually really interesting, fascinating ways of producing value, even if it isn't immediately shareholder value. But they were things that we would consider inane, that you would go, that's boring shit. Who cares? Why would anybody care? Well, now everybody thinks about, now a lot of the people involved in these things think about why anybody cares. And it's problematic for the people who actually have to deal in that space, right? You didn't want sysadmins to suddenly have a security posture. And that only became a thing because now we're having a conversation about the fact that, like, if you're a sysadmin at the IAEA, no, you're not a civilian who's just going about their life and nobody cares about you.
Yeah. This was last week. I had another point, but it would take us down a tangent that I don't want to go down.
Ryan, you want to go pee, man? It's okay. We can wait.
I give up in these tangents. No. I want to call attention to Apple iOS 26.2 that dropped last Friday. Just as we posted the podcast, Costin sent a message saying, hey, iOS 26.2 dropped. Included 2 0 days that had already been exploited in the wild, with the usual and extremely sophisticated attack against specific targeted individuals on versions of iOS before iOS 26. So do we have any visibility into what this was, Costin?
Me not.
It was credited to Tag. It was credited to Google's Tag, yeah.
Right. So I would assume, Tag has, but I haven't seen any specific information for now. About this particular CVEs, they're patching here. Actually, they as always they patch like a bunch of things, and out of those, there are some interesting ones like the 0 days impacting WebKit, like memory corruption, use after free bugs that can be actually exploited through malicious crafted web content. So that means either a one-click or by leveraging some kind of a man-in-the-middle technique that could probably lead even to zero-click exploitation, or, of course, when coupled with other vulnerabilities that, force WhatsApp to load a remote resource or another application in the phone to remotely load a page, that could, again, allow for zero-click execution. So I think they're very interesting, but unfortunately there isn't much information available.
Nothing at all, yeah.
I mean, I patched, everyone patched. It's sad that they don't say specifically this extremely sophisticated attack on versions before iOS 26. Which ones? Which versions?
And
was it like
7?
But like, look, was it last month? Was it yesterday? Was it 2 years ago? Was it last year in September? I mean, that would be nice. And also it would be nice to know if it was like was it a watering hole? Was it a targeted watering hole coupled with something? Anything I think would be nice to have here.
And where's Tag's documentation? Why can't Tag give us a couple of lines about how they like the kind of questions you're asking? We don't want to give up the farm. We suspect this has to be one of these commercial spyware vendors, Juanito.
I guess. I don't. What the fuck do I know, man? I have no idea.
I'm not gonna fact check you, bro.
Like, dude, yes, you will. If I start talking about apparently,
marathons,
if I talk about
sure.
running marathons, then all of a sudden everyone's a fucking expert.
How many push-ups can you do in 5 minutes?
Oh, none. I guess probably none. I have you. Like no. Oh, sorry, Ryan. Go.
Not go. You. Like. Well, I don't know.
In tandem with this iOS 26.2 patch, which everyone should go patch, turn on lockdown mode, do all your stuff, the normal stuff we always talk about. We got a document out of Reporters Without Borders, which is this international journalism advocacy advocacy group. Belarus using spyware on journalists. So some documentation there on some new spyware. Resident Bat was mentioned. Belarusian KGB during detentions. Investigations found that authorities seized smartphones, force users to provide pins, and use Android debug bridge tools to sideload malware while the device was outside the owner's site. Run-of-the-mill stuff that we've come to expect from these adversaries and these targets, right, Costin?
Yeah, I mean the poor man's NSO equivalent, if you want, and the solution that you can apply. You arrest people, you get their phones out of their hands, you force them, beat them to provide the pins, and then just use these tools to sideload malware. I think there are a number of similar stories out of Serbia that we talked about, and also a number of stories out of China where people during border control, notably Uyghurs and other categories, they were being forced either to, in some cases, even to accept these applications in the sense that, yeah, look, we're going to put this thing on your phone and you cannot remove it. And if you remove it, you'll go to jail, something like that. Or simply
And the Indians just want to do this. And in India, they just wanted to do this more recently, right?
Like, read my lips, it won't be just India. Like soon, same in the European Union, United Kingdom, Australia.
You're pessimistic
everywhere.
that this is the direction that
this is the direction. Like, not only that you'll be forced to have these applications on your phone, like a digital ID with more, or simply the phones, like the law will require smartphone developers, applications developers, whatever, to provide phones which have these things pre-installed for things like age checks, to save the children, to protect our young things, age
we
verification.
Kids looking at porn, yeah. Half of the US is already requiring VPNs for adult content online. I mean, it's just where we are.
Well, half of the rest of the world will soon ban VPN. So let's meet in the middle.
This man is talking about a dark, dark time, Juanito.
I don't know, man.
This report mentions Graphene OS as an option for folks to. I mean, if you're running Graphene OS, how do you get around someone beating you and forcing you to install something on it?
I mean, of course, like someone arresting and beating you and getting the pin out of you is a terrible thing, and I honestly don't wish this upon anyone, obviously. At the same time, I thought it was interesting in this story that in one case, the owner of the phone was actually warned by the antivirus solution in the phone that there was something shady running there. They don't go into a lot of details.
Which AV it is.
I think it wasn't necessarily an AV, but if you read this story, one possibility here, it was just Google Play Protect that warned them. So the kind of the built-in mechanism warned them about this application that wants to do a bit too much and it shouldn't be there. So I think that's one possibility. On the other hand, other companies like, for instance, Samsung, they do use additional enforcement techniques in order to spot applications that shouldn't run on the phone. As for Graphene OS, obviously Graphene OS by default is designed to protect you against all sorts of things, and including has this duress pin that you can give them, and entering that pin wipes the phone. So there's things like this, but I fear that if you give them the wrong pin and that wipes the phone, they're gonna beat the shit out of you even more.
Top. Yeah.
I mean, in some countries it might not be a feasible alternative if you want to survive and be married.
There was a much better time of before crypto or cryptographic implementations became a matter of like virtue signaling. And they were actually about trying to protect people and somehow give them a chance to subvert things and not get caught. The whole point of things like this was like deniability, right? There's a volume in the thing that is not even listed, that can be decrypted if you use the right thing, and if you use the wrong thing, it's gone. There's an app that, like, if you put one passcode, it's one thing. If you put a different passcode, it's another thing. Like, the whole point was for people to survive and to not get caught, to not arouse suspicion. Shit like that, where it's like, oh yeah, put the wrong pin in and watch the fucking phone get wiped. What a wonderful way to get the absolute shit beaten out of you. Because now you have literally showed them that there is something that they don't know about.
And they will never know about it.
They will not know about it from the phone, so they're going to get it the fuck out of you no matter, right? Like, it's just things like that. I think there was, like, the cypherpunk dream died when the Tor people became more about the identity and the clout than they were about the protection of people in denied areas that needed to be able to surf the fucking internet without getting caught or thrown in jail. Like, I think that was the moment where it all kind of broke, because then we were no longer having these conversations about how do you get to be sneaky? How do you not arouse suspicion? Instead, everything became a fucking GoFundMe for how do we virtue signal the hardest about the fact that we are, quote unquote, helping people in difficult situations without helping people in difficult situations at all.
Yeah. Anything else on this Belarus story, Costin?
I would say that if you find yourself in a situation that is maybe less than fortunate, where somebody tries to beat you, takes your phone, looks at the phone for an hour or two, gives it back to you, my advice would be to immediately reach out to security expert, be it
TLP Black.
RSF, Citizen Lab, TLP Black, who I mean, there's many different options here. So whoever you trust the most, reach out to them and tell them what happened, and ask if they can look at the phone. Ask if they can try to see if it's been compromised, if something was added. And I think that rather than throwing the phone away, wiping it, or just carrying it, continue to do whatever you were doing before and try to forget the story is not the right way. So just try to get in touch with someone, with a security researcher, and ask them to look at the phone.
All right, forensics might be your only kind of like fallback. I want to touch on another O-Day, which is a Cisco O-Day, and I bring this up because we've criticized Cisco in the past, Juanito, you especially, around general seeming indifference at looking at Chinese threats, like this economic consequences was kind of floated as an idea. Cisco actually announced an still unpatched maximum severity Cisco async OS 0-day, actively being exploited in attacks targeting SEGs, secure email gateways, and secure email and web managers, still to be patched, and mentioning it's linked to a Chinese Nexus threat actor, UAT9686, these fucking names. Well, is that a new naming convention? So Cisco Talos announced in an advisory on Wednesday on UAT9686, Chinese Nexus threat actor. Surprised to you that we're now getting a Cisco OD advisory around Chinese things?
Yes, but not unpleasantly, right? Like, I was very unhappy with the sense that Cisco was kind of pulling away and shying out, right? Like, you're a fucking behemoth. You're a monster of a company. Like,
great telemetry. They must have
unbelievable telemetry, great researchers, but also you're just fucking huge, right? Like, you move markets. What's scary about a company like Cisco kowtowing is that it basically sets the tone for everybody else. So seeing this, I mean, I was over the fucking moon. I actually didn't believe it when I read like summary about it, and I went like just digging into the story just to be damn sure. Like, they said that it's from China, that it is Chinese, whatever. I don't know what the impetus is here. I just hope it's a change, that it's a change in disposition, and that it means that, look, maybe the line is just they're fucking with Cisco stuff, so fuck you. We're going to call it out the way it is. Maybe that's the new line. I don't know. I think that would, I'd much rather you just call it out wherever you see it. But if we're not going to be super proactive in that way, then you can at least exercise a form of soft power, essentially, of saying, oh yeah, we normally don't name Chinese ABTs, but if you motherfuckers are going to mess with our products, then we will burn you in record time, right? Like, that's an interesting way of going about it. If there's an executive out there who's got, the wherewithal and the moral fiber, turpitude of some sort, to take this on.
The bug we're discussing is CVE 2025-20393, discovered by Cisco's own Talos security group. And it's, according to Cisco, the attacks have been aimed at a limited subset of appliances with certain ports open to the internet. Costin, the obvious question for you is, what did you do with this amazing batch of IOCs that they dropped?
Well, first of all, we need to say thank you for the IOCs, which are available on GitHub. It's not a lot. It's just, I think, 3 hashes and 3 IP addresses. The hashes are not on VirusTotal, so we don't have the samples.
No samples, right?
I did notice, however, that they printed one of the samples, which is Aqua Purge. They have it printed in the blog, so in the form of an image. So in theory, you can reconstruct it from the image. I'll try to do that, and I'll try to make some Yara rules from this image in order to hunt for it. What I thought was interesting is that the IP addresses they give here, although this UAT 9686, I think it is, they talk about it's not directly connected with anything else that we know about. They do mention in the blog that the tooling is somehow similar with other Chinese Nexus APTs like APT41 or ANC 5174. I don't think it is an indication that we're talking about APT41 or ANC 5174. What I did find using our systems, there is a kind of a weak connection between these IP addresses and another Chinese Nexus threat actor that leverages Gobret and also Bulbature or Bulbature. That I think the French wrote about it, and I think our friends from Sequoia wrote about it. And Gobret was written about by the Japanese CERT. Both of them, I think, they're not associated with any known threat actor. So both Gobret and Bulbature, they're things out there, unknown threat actor behind them. But it does seem there is some weak overlap. So there's a possibility that this actor that we're talking about here, UAT 9686, may have some overlap with the actor using Gobret and Bulbature. It would be good to get the samples.
How do we get the samples, Juanito? Is this something? Is it always up to Cisco to release a sample, or is there a way to go figure it out and get a sample on your own?
I mean, look, of course there are ways that we may inadvertently fall onto a thing, but it's almost always about, somebody playing ball or somebody fucking up. And frankly, I just wish we didn't have to have that conversation in the slightest. Like, if we just set a standard as an industry to say, if we're publishing, we're going to upload to VT or to Malshare or to whatever. And I don't say that in a Boy Scout sort of way, but like, look, if your argument is basically that you have some kind of intellectual property holding to malware components because, you sell threat intel and that has its own value, okay, but you just published it. So it's already known. You already have the credit. You did it. We praise you. Now, if you could just also put those components into the fucking, public pool, that would be phenomenal. And frankly, if there's specific cases where the thing has the name of a client or a victim, okay, those are specific cases. You can treat each one of those like a unique little snowflake if you want. You can remove whatever thing you think is going to be telling of the client and let people know. You can keep that one component if that's what you feel. But frankly, we know that in most cases, that's not happening. That's not the reason. It's not about protecting anybody. And we're not telling you to just put them on Google or whatever. We're not telling you to share ODAs left and right. We're just saying malware components, malicious stuff like that, keeping it to yourselves, you're not doing people favors. So,
and it's weird, because I know, for instance, there are people in Cisco Talos that speaks like you do.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
About
I think most people at
in the
Talos
industry
would say that. Almost certainly. Any
So what
researcher would
stops
say
this?
that.
So what stops them from sharing a sample? I mean, other than some of the proprietary stuff that you discuss. I mean,
I would imagine it's just legal. Like it's gonna be somebody risk averse or somebody thinking that they're doing the right thing by the company and they're not. And look, I've had to talk to my fair share of like privacy lawyers and stuff. It a lot of the time they think they're acting in the best interest and they just don't understand the space. And I tend to, there's a reason I narrow in on executives so much. It's not, that I fucking hate them. It's more that if they would know, if you're doing your job well, you know that what you're supposed to do there is give your researchers the cloud cover to do what they know is the right way to do things and to avoid having to tell them that they can't do what they think the right thing to do is. So this is simply an opportunity to say to whomever the VP of whatever is, whomever it is that's having to talk to these lawyers and privacy folks and fight, like, I'm sorry that things are so complex, but that's your fucking job. And it's important that you actually listen to what the researchers think the right thing to do is and then try to model things, because what we're looking out for is not that one stupid publication. It's the health of the larger ecosystem. And when we get blanket bans like, oh, we're just never going to upload any samples. We're just never going to. You're like, okay, well, now we've created a problem, an enduring problem to protect from a couple of edge cases we're not even running into.
Our friends at Amazon Amazon Threat Intel team continues to be busy. This is like the third or the fourth podcast in a row. We're talking about one of their reports, and they're progressively getting better. At least that's been our response to it. We just
Amazon's
got
playing ball.
CJ Moses, man. Shout out to CJ Moses.
Is the hardest working man in showbiz. The hardest researcher. Damn, man.
Another blog in CJ Moses'
shit.
name. Another blog in CJ Moses' name, sharing some Amazon threat intelligence around a year-long Russian state-sponsored campaign. And their tone here is that this represents a significant shift in targeting critical infrastructure, where they're pivoting instead of exploiting vulnerabilities, they're pivoting into these misconfigured customer network edge devices. So it's not even vulnerabilities, it's just misconfigurations. And Costin, you looked at this report, there's some overlap with Sandworm, and Amazon is making it clear that this is a Russia GRU operation. What did we learn? Anything out stand out that we learned here beyond just this misconfiguration issue?
Well, they say the attribution is based on infrastructure overlap in operations observed in Amazon's telemetry. By just reading the blog, I was thinking that the attribution or the link is not very obvious to me, but I mean, obviously, I want to trust Amazon here, so no objection. If they say this is related to Sandworm, it's related to Sandworm.
You give them the benefit of the doubt. CJ gets the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
I trust them. By the way, that would be another question. Although the blog is signed by CJ, is it CJ who really did the research and wrote the blog, or as the blog says, Amazon Threat Intelligence is sharing insights? So maybe the blog is not his own blog, but he's just the one posting them for some reason. So I don't know. It might be the
CMS. The CMS might only have one author tag.
There's only one.
And let's put it. Or remember, some companies also used to do this back in the days. when you don't want to expose your
No.
own analysts to targeting by foreign governments and foreign intelligence agencies such as the GRU here, maybe you don't want to name names. You don't want to put your analyst names in the blog, and instead you put the big shot. You put the guy with the background from, let's check. Where was the
FBI?
You're looking
background?
for
Oh
CJ's
yeah,
background.
special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. So
There
I
you
don't know,
go.
maybe something like this. But nevertheless, I don't doubt doubt the attribution. What's maybe a bit new for me is this exploit that was captured by Amazon Medpot, their custom honeypot infrastructure, during 2022. I don't think that I was familiar and I have seen it before. So that's actually nice. There's a number of IP addresses in there. Unfortunately, most of them are compromised legitimate servers, including I think one of them looked like a Tor exit node, according to our systems. So the IP address is maybe not that useful. So that's what I meant in terms of attribution. There are maybe not super hard overlaps, but perhaps, of course, they have more. The other thing here in the article, they do mention this overlap with Curly Comrades, which is another operation threat actor, if you want, from a Bitdefender report earlier this year. So they say there's like the custom implants, curly shell, curly cat are the same. The cloud pivoting methodology looks the same. So there's some interesting overlap there with curly comrades. A report from Bitdefender. But again, like only positive things to say for sharing information, for sharing data from their Medpot infrastructure, which looks like a very cool thing. And me personally, I really appreciate it when people start blogging about these internal projects, which maybe, I don't know, maybe they had this for a decade and nobody cared and they were just silently collecting interesting stuff. And nobody thought about writing blog posts based on detections from these tiny pet projects of some analysts in the company. So kudos for that. And if they can publish more Amazon Medpod blogs, that would be awesome.
We'll put up with all the marketing of Medpod if you can share stuff. I mean, that's the argument we've been making. If your APT reports are going to be pure marketing without anything else to help the rest of us defend ourselves, then we're going to pan that as pure marketing. If you're going to, it's all marketing anyway. But if you're going to share something and give us some sort of data to ghost hunting our systems, then that's perfectly acceptable in my world. Anything to add to this, Juanito?
Just praise for the man CJ Moses himself, dude. I can't imagine. Look, we barely gotten any threat intel out of Amazon for so long, and now they're fucking like just smacking it down, like cranking it out, and we're here shitting on like the author, like why they put that.
We're
no,
just
but I'm saying like,
no,
but we're giving them shit about like, you know, who's being said as like the author in the CMS, as you said, and they're like, I'm sure it's some bullshit. Like, guys, like we just only had one author set there. Like we need to change. We don't have avatar pictures for the researchers, like something like that.
In fairness, I think there was one last week or the week before where there was a tagline on the bottom mentioning some researchers.
The Cyber
names.
WarCon one, right? Because they'd given a talk, right? So
correct.
Yeah, but
so it's not all. So there is, even if the byline in the CMS is all screwed up, like put a line in there and give the guy some credit. Or shout out to CJ. CJ might be in there doing his stuff. He might be on TLP Black using the platform.
I'm just curious. I am definitely curious about the sandworm bit. But more than anything, it's not out of doubting their findings as much as I am once again back to the belief that I do not know how to characterize these groups accurately anymore. And that's come and gone in phases. Like there have been times when I could, you could look at the Russian menagerie or the Chinese menagerie and you say, I'm fairly familiar with how a lot of these big players operate. And you kind of like just catch a scent of them and you go, oh, yep, I understand. This looks like what I'm used to. And then there's periods when you just go, I have no clue what these people are up to or what they look like. And a big part of that, I don't think it's just my ignorance, but rather how a lot of these folks have changed how they operate, how the Chinese have, and how the Russians have. And you get a lot more of this living off the land shit, and it's a lot harder to categorize things and cluster them accurately. And that is why we have been so so harsh on the folks that have a lot of telemetry. It's not out of envy or out of, uh, just taking opportunities at pot shots. It's rather like this shit is getting harder. The attackers are making it harder, and it does not help at all that we don't help each other out, don't share the right kind of things that we do have on hand so that we can put those pictures together and make it a little easier for everybody.
It doesn't help at all that they don't even need vulnerabilities for these edge devices that we've been talking about. I've read at least 5 annual reports, 2025 annual reports, and the lead in all of these vendor reports is these edge devices being at the top of the list of places being targeted. Now they don't even need vulnerabilities. It's just misconfigurations. And when I see Sandworm, Costin, remind the folks who Sandworm is. Like, this group was responsible for like some destructive things. Andy Greenberg, I believe, wrote a book on this sandworm. So like when you see this name, it pops up into your head. And if these edge devices don't even have to be vulnerable because they're just misconfigured and these guys are shifting there, it's fucking scary as hell.
I think it's interesting to also say that we've seen the other GRU affiliated group, Solfacy/APT28, was doing this at least a decade ago. We came by some of their operations and command and control servers and was kind of shocked to see that they were amassing firmware for different network devices, that they were working on patching that firmware to add vulnerabilities and then flash the malicious firmware on network devices around the world. I remember some cases in Brazil, for instance, where they were quite active trying to deploy these tools. And that was Solfacy, not Sandworm. And I was thinking here, is it like truly Sandworm? Again, no offense meant, and I absolutely trust the Amazon assessment, but it's probably obvious by now to anyone, like you were saying, compromising network devices is in everyone's summaries of 2025. It's in our TLP Black summary of 2025. It's one of the points there that the compromising of network devices has become one of the like foundations of any APT group out there. So it would be very weird to see any high-end group such as Sandworm not use it. Now, in terms of history, of course, they probably rose to prominence with some of the things like the Olympic Games, the Pyeongchang Olympic Games, had the so-called Olympic Destroyer attack. I think that was the first time that they were mentioned everywhere in the news. If we do not, of course, take into consideration the other big stories from before, we can probably tie this further back into things like gray energy, black energy, and the likes, as you would tie Turla back into Moonlight Maze. Again, the lineage is there with these groups which have been active for many decades in some cases.
I encourage folks to go look at Kurt Baumgartner's work on this. A lot
fucking
about
you,
just fantastic.
Yeah, Masha and all the bears. I was thinking about the Kurt's talk. I think it was Cyber WarCon, like 20 God knows
the old
when.
SAS days too. There's some old SAS talks on listed on YouTube too. I might be able to find those and share it. But I encourage folks to go look at some of those old reporting around black energy. Kurt and
Gray
Marsha
energy was always interesting.
We don't have a lot of time to touch on a lot. There's a lot of Chinese APT reporting stories this week.
This week has been crazy.
It's been full, but I want to touch on one small thing. Nicole Fishbein, am I saying the last name correctly? Fishbein?
Yeah.
From Intezer had a paper on this paper werewolf, Goffy, threat actor, and Reuters did a report on it as well around Russian defense firms targeted by hackers using AI and some other tactics. Nicole writes about, what is this thing? A shift to XLL-based delivery, XLL files. What are those? Did you guys get a chance to peek at this report at all? Any thoughts?
I didn't look at the Reuters story, but I read the report itself. So the XLL thing I thought was actually really interesting. It's some kind of file type that's just like an Excel add-in file that extends Excel capabilities. These sorts of things are always fascinating, where you like find out about some slightly obscure, not totally secret, but just not very well known way that like Microsoft Office parses this and that thing with a very specific kind of file type that you never thought about. Those things tend to be gold mines for certain kinds of threat actors. But when I say certain kinds of threat actors, it's the kind of like threat actors that have people in them that know these things too and have known to go down those paths. And that kind of shit is always fascinating to me. So with this one in particular, I know Nicole mentions that APT10 had done this sort of thing before, but I am really curious about this paper werewolf and or I guess Gofi and where the hell they come from and what it is they're doing, right?
Yeah, she doesn't share much on where they come from, but there's pretty interesting notes on AI-generated social engineering, some evasion execution chains, the kind of payload. Pretty detailed report. Did you get IOX, Costin?
Well, I mean, shout outs to Nicole. She's always publishing awesome research papers. Back at my previous job, we were seeing a lot of this Gofi. I mean, there was a lot of Gofi activity, obviously, and I think that this activity has been ramping up since the start of the war in Ukraine. As to whom is behind it, even the naming scheme, I think here kind of points into the direction of Ukraine. So if you ask me who it is, maybe the cyber army of Ukraine, not the cyber army of Texas, cyber army of Ukraine, and the likes. It is, of course, this XSL technique is not necessarily very sophisticated. I mean, cybercrime groups have been using it as well for maybe more than 5 years now, I think. I've
And this
seen
is to get around
Agent
like
Tesla.
Microsoft blocking of macros and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's been harder and harder to run macros nowadays. So people have been using all sorts of tricky methods to get code execution through, again, social engineering. So you still need to manually click on things. But nevertheless, these kind of techniques, they're super super effective, and a lot of people can just fall for these simple tricks, especially when the spear phishing, the decoys are like very good language. They're like possibly even related to something that you were doing that week or that moment. The chances for them to be successful, they're very high.
One last story I wanted to touch on. I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to touch on Amazon recently discovering one of these. We talked a lot about these North Korean IT workers finding jobs in US organizations, tricking HR organizations, doing all that stuff. Amazon actually detected a North Korean operative working as a remote systems administrator after monitoring software flagged an unusual keystroke delay of 110 milliseconds. While domestic US workers typically have a lag of only tens of milliseconds, this higher latency indicated the laptop had been controlled from another side of the world, which was later traced to China. Pretty interesting to see a small technical control be used as a detection mechanism here, and a pretty cool share here from Microsoft Chief Security Officer. This is not CJ, by the way.
Microsoft
This is
or Amazon?
Sorry. Amazon. Every time I say CISO, I think of Microsoft.
There's 14 of them.
Not CJ Moses, but this is Amazon Chief Security Officer
When I saw
Steven
the story,
Schmidt.
when I saw the story, I was like, CJ, this has to be CJ. And then I read the story. Oh, it's not CJ.
We like CJ.
Pretty cool use of like tracking like keystrokes, latency. Any thoughts?
I wonder if you
Is
can.
this something we can implement at scale across the board to find these fuckers?
Ooh, that's like there's for sure a privacy implication here. I don't know what that means in terms of measuring people's keystrokes and creating
all these big corporates
profiles
do it
and
now, right?
averages. And then I tell you that if you mine this data, you can probably even detect the onset of dementia or like other things, like whenever
wow.
you are on magic mushrooms, or you can probably detect this. I'm just saying, I don't know.
Don't
Like
give
if you
people
profile
ideas.
people's keystrokes and the speed and like the way, just to give you an example, maybe things, how quickly you type maybe P after E, things like that, like the coordination between hands,
Yeah.
for sure it can spot if you're sick, if
Well, it's
you're
like
getting
gait
slow, if you're
analysis,
drugged.
but for nerds, right?
Well, a
Uh,
lot of these organizations are
sure.
like tracking people's mouse clicks to see if they're actually working. I think remote work and work from home kind of shifted organizations into like, let me make sure I can see that the mouse is actually moving and there's like work. So there is technology to be able to flag some certain things.
Well, but so let's think about this, right? I don't see anything. First of all, like I don't see anything wrong with this, in the sense of we already have a lot of like look, if you're an employee at a company, they're already treating you as if you have no expectation of privacy, particularly on their systems. So like you've got people, stripping SSL, having like different types of certificates, like all this shit just to check what's going on. And you can understand why. I'm not talking about the privacy side of it because I don't think the privacy side of it actually applies here.
I agree.
When we
Yeah.
talk about millisecond differences, what you're talking about is actually, it doesn't make sense how long it's taking the data to go to you and come back to us if you tell us that you live in Seattle.
Arizona. No, in this
Right,
case,
like-
it was the laptop had been shipped to a proxy addressed in Arizona, was remotely accessed by the North Korean worker to perform tasks while appearing to be in the U.S. One last point quickly.
Yeah.
Amazon noted the worker was caught before they could access any highly sensitive data. Just so.
Of course. Well, I think this is the kind of shit that I think is brilliant. This is the kind of using physics to our advantage, which I think one of the few companies I've, off the top of my head, that I know does really cool stuff like this is Spur. So Riley's shop, Spur, will do a lot of this kind of magic just to figure out if something's a proxy, if something's like a legit thing on the internet. So definitely check them out. She does amazing stuff. The really important thing here is this is the kind of metrics, data-based, interesting stuff that I would love to see across the board, precisely because it gives us some kind of ground truth to base our concerns around. When you're just telling people, well, you should check to see if they're hyper efficient. Are they inconsistent in how they write you because you think it's one coworker, but it's actually 12 different people and 4 LLMs. You're putting this burden of responsibility on folks that also starts to, I think it has to erode company culture. It has to erode. Like if people actually listened to you and they were all checking every person in their Zoom call being like, which one of you motherfuckers is a insider threat, I don't think that that's a very nice place to work in, and it doesn't need to be that way when in reality you have things like this. And why does it matter? Because when you start to really monitor these like really minor, insane, nitpicky metrics, they're not privacy problems in this particular case, but they're the kind of things that give you, let's say, a 10, right? Somebody goes, why is this thing taking, a fraction of a second longer to do the thing it used to do? And those are
Every
not...
time I try to talk to that guy. Yeah.
Right. Like, and those are not privacy issues. Those are also not really human noticeable things. We're lucky when they happen that way, but that's really not what it should be. That's what a system should, it's zero trust, right? If you're telling me that you have a system implemented around the notion of giving everybody access, the access that they need, and just second guessing everything about the systems they're on, the places they're coming in from, the places they're connecting from, the certificates they're using, these are the sorts of things that should be baked into the tech, period.
Speaking of Giatan, whatever happened to that guy? We just like
there's
that
a
investigation
rumor.
never. Do you know that that investigation never
Wait.
went anywhere?
There's rumor. I
there's a
never
rumor.
heard shit. I never heard
I
anything.
recently
Costin
heard the
has
rumor.
rumor.
I recently heard the rumor I cannot say who, not in public, but there's a rumor that there is attribution in the Zia 10, whatever the name was, in the exutils case. So let's see. Let's see if the people
Wait a
with the
second, you
rumor.
just can't drop that like that.
I can.
Okay.
You know why? Because it's Christmas. On Christmas, everything
Merry
is
Christmas, everybody.
forgiven, and everything
Alright.
is for God.
So you think we'll hear some, in all seriousness, you think we'll hear eventually about some attribution
There
report
is
coming down the
rumors.
line?
There is rumors already, and let's see if anyone has the balls of steel to drop the attribution.
Ooh, which means it needs balls of steel. That's another clue and another rumor.
Yeah.
Costin, close the show with some shout-outs. We're at the 2-hour mark. It's time to close the show.
First of all, shout outs to our good friend, by the way, at Cisco Talos, Ashley. And she's actually a listener of the show. So thank you for being a listener, Ashley. The other thing is shout outs to all my friends who lost a pet last week. Unfortunately, our pet Spot passed away this Monday.
Yes.
May he rest in peace. But I found
R.I.P.
at the
to
same
Spot, yeah.
two of my friends also, their pets passed away. Their cats passed away last week. So I hope you're okay, guys. And also for anyone who is considering or has the chance or opportunity to adopt a stray cat or a stray dog, there's no other joy just to look in their eyes and to see how happy they are when you get them off the streets. Give them like a warm bed, some food, and they will love you back without asking for anything in return, anything else. So cheers to that. And of course, we still have Luna, our other cat, and we're already thinking if we can get another one.
I was going to say your shout-out got really, really dark until it lightened up towards the end there. Juanito, you got
I'm
any
not gonna
plugs, any shout-outs to folks?
I'm not lightening anything up. I don't know, dude. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough time all around. I am looking forward to hopefully next year bringing an entirely new set of challenges and interesting research for us to do. In the meantime, I'm always thrilled when I see really cool shit pop off. Like ran into a Halvar blog out of the blue, just sort of sharing how he was doing some of his LLM work and getting things to do C++, triage, like crash triage. Little things like that are so exciting to me because it's somebody showing you how the sausage is made before the sausage is even ready to get cooked. And those are the moments when you really get little bits of brilliance that you can hopefully apply and advance. And I'd like to see so much more of that in the security space in 2026. Like we've always been great about sharing with each other, but I'd love to see it more in making these AI tools actually relevant and useful to us where it fucking matters. And in that same vein, like we already talked about it, but like shout out to Andrew McPherson, who is one of the nicest people I know, and also amazing.
He had some shit like, talk about this podcast at his LabsCon talk.
Everybody makes mistakes,
okay,
but his love of crypto being one of them. But no, it's actually really cool. He was on the GPT-4 system card. He's out here getting recognized by Sam Altman, for this 5.1 codex thing. And like the dude's just taking big swings, doing cool shit. And I just want to shout him out for that.
All right, let me close the show by guiding people to tlpblack.net's blog. Costin, you guys had an amazing year-end report, kind of recapping what we've seen over the last year and where things are going. I thought it was like last week I mentioned the Sentinel Labs predictions document that I really, really enjoyed. I actually went and reread it. I have never read any of these things before, and I reread this one, so pretty solid there. And I say the same about the TLP Black year-end report, which was a pretty solid read that you don't get anywhere else, and that's also refreshing. And lastly, a shout out to Virus Total founder, our friend Bernardo Quintero. Bernardo out of Malaga. I see these guys launched Omnia Security. It's like a chat GPT for cybersecurity. It's an AI platform with some connections into VirusTotal and so on. But more importantly, as part of like his toying around and playing with the platform, Bernardo built an agent for the platform called the Fourth Buddy that mines all the transcripts for our show from episode 1 through now, including your LabsCon talk, all the transcript for our shows that people can go into there.
It must be insufferable.
It is insufferable. It's called a rant farm. Shout out to Bernardo. Shout out to all the guys from Omnia. These guys are building a new startup there in they're calling it in Google's Malaga basement. That entire scene is pretty hot. Speaking of Malaga, PivotCon is coming up. Call for Papers is open. Shout out to Pascual and the guys working on that conference. Next month again is DistrictCon, January 24 and 26 on the conference circuit. Good luck to all those folks. Hey, these conference organizations, as we well know, it's a lot of grinding work. And when you're putting together these things, it takes up a lot of time. So shout out to all those folks. Anything else, guys, before we close?
Echo Party in Miami. CFP's open.
In Miami.
And Reverse. Just keep shouting out the good conferences that are coming. Come on, guys. You have a break now. CFPs are open. Show us some cool shit.
That's our show for this week, guys. Enjoy your Merry Christmas to everyone.
Well, can I read you just one cool thing from the Fourth Buddy?
Go. This is the Omnia Fourth Buddy agent.
I said hi, and he said, "Oh, give me a little more. What kind of drama are we talking about? Is it a vendor drama? Did Microsoft ship another feature nobody wanted? Is Ivanti on fire again? Government drama? Did CISA release another toothless advisory? APT drama? Did a new panda or bear drop something?
Wow.
Or community drama? Is someone beefing on Twitter X again?"
Oh my God, that's
we may not need to do this podcast anymore. I'm feeling
fantastic.
Just too called out. This wow.
That's our show for this week, guys. Have a Merry Christmas, and we'll catch you before the end of the year for a 4-hour episode looking back. Maybe we'll go live next Friday. Let's see.
Oh shit! All right.
Let's do it.
Cheers. Pack up.